We're gonna push it. We're gonna push it out of the way. Get out! Get out! Get out!
A lot of people don't understand that when you see dead bodies, when you kill people, when you see children being killed, when you see a lot of this stuff, you're never going to be the same.
Open the hurt locker and see what there is of knives and teeth. Open the hurt locker and learn how rough men come hunting for souls. Brian Turner's poem Hurt Locker uses explicit sight and sound imagery as well as metaphors in order to help the reader understand both what war is like and the pain and surprise he feels as he reflects on his experience. This poem truly exemplifies the horror and inhumanity of war and everything that goes on during it. The metaphor in lines 15 through 18 compares old war memories to a hurt locker being opened and explains how the horrible memories that Turner holds from the war come to the front of his mind daily, like a worker opening their work locker every day.
When Brad Farnsley returned home from war, he headed straight to the Warrior Transition Unit, a place where broken soldiers are sent. Brad had convinced his best friend to accept his final deployment, where his friend ended up being killed in combat. For the rest of his life, Brad will have to live with that burden and that blame. An American hero is usually defined as someone who, in the face of danger or adversity, displays courage or self-sacrifice for the greater good. Brad is looked at as an American hero because of his time in combat to protect our country. However, his situation is somewhat ironic. He personally would never see himself as an American hero because in his mind, it is his fault that his friend died.
That's what I'm thinking of now, because I'm all out of adrenaline, all out of smoking incendiaries. Somewhere deep in the landscape of the brain, under the skull's blue curving dome, that's where I am now. Brian Turner's poem R&R is filled with descriptive imagery in order to help the reader fully understand what he is missing. He does this to show that it is the little things that he misses while away at war. Turner then transitions to not even thinking about being with his lover, but just wanting to be in paradise. It's inside the skull's blue curving dome that he imagines this, and he calls this place his sanatorium. Turner has such a lack of R&R while away fighting that he cannot help himself but to think about it. While away at war, he wants to be someplace that can take the war out of his mind.
Star Lopez and her husband Christopher have both seen action in war. Christopher was deployed first and came back home and became a police officer. Star Lopez was deployed second and was away from home when her daughter River was growing up. She then returned home to the heartbreaking realization that her daughter didn't know her anymore. We see here that coming back home is not always as easy when you leave your family behind. While Andy Clark was away at war, his wife Pamela raised their autistic son by herself. Now returning from Afghanistan, Andy finds delight in seeing his son for the first time in months.
Looking at my wife for the first time.
CJ, Daddy's here. Hey, I want a hug. I missed you. I hear him freaking out.
Buddy. I love this part.
Yeah, this is the best part, right?
You wonder if you've changed. You wonder if you can turn it off.
Ryan Collins hadn't been home from combat long before he killed himself. His mother, Bonnie Collins, did not see any signs of depression or concern with him when he had returned home. His death came as a complete surprise to her, and she thinks that part of the reason why is because warriors are trained to conceal weakness.
What did he say that he really wanted to do kind of long term, especially post-military?
Work in an emergency room, which he was doing as an EMT, and he loved that because it was the military can-do spirit.
I now know that Brian was putting on a brave face. Warriors are trained to conceal weakness. Why didn't he ask for help? And why couldn't I see through the act?
And there was no sign of anything, no conversations that he had prior, nothing where this was a complete blindside.
To me, it was.
I was blindsided too. I spoke to Brian just a few weeks before he killed himself. He told me that he was in the best place that he'd ever been in his life, but that couldn't have been true.
This eardrum, this rifled symphonic, this ringing of midnight and gunpowder and oil, this brake pad gone useless, this muzzled flash singing, this threading of bullets in muscle and bone, this ringing hum, this ringing hum, this ringing. Brian Turner's poem, Phantom Noise, utilizes broken rhythm, abnormal line breaks, sentence fragments, and repetition to beautifully illustrate for the reader what suffering from PTSD feels like. It also exemplifies what kind of obstacles and pain a soldier dealing with PTSD has to go through in order to live a happy, healthy life again.
Latrice Titus's entire family had served in the military, and she enlisted at age 33 with 2 kids at home and her husband overseas. Now she works for the Veterans Administration, and her job is to help veterans in times of crisis and need.
The commonality that all of the responders have is that desire to help a veteran who is in the worst place in their life. Thank you for calling the Veterans Crisis Line. This is Latrice. How can I help you? What branch of service were you in, Ruthie? In the Army. Army Strong, Hook. Well, thank you for your service. I was in the Army. I was a 68 X-ray behavioral health specialist. I was working in the clinic and servicing soldiers, and then transitioning, I was like, I can go back to case management and do social work, but I prefer to stay with veterans. To be able to talk to someone and hear their struggles and be able to bring them back and give them more reasons to live than reasons to die, that's wonderful.
Veterans present in the video are all young and fought primarily in the Middle Eastern conflicts that are still present today. But those are not the only veterans in America. There are tons of people who are homeless. There are 70-year-old men looking for shelter during snowstorms because when they were in their mid-20s, they didn't have the support that is available to so many veterans today. Many organizations today are working very hard to bring veterans home peacefully.
All too often, veterans' voices are not heard, and when they are abused. For a veteran, lacking a strong voice can lead to other complications such as PTSD and difficulty adjusting. There has always been an intense power struggle between those who have a voice that is heard and those who do not. In fact, it is the voices of the abused that should be heard the loudest in order to help stop the injustice.
What is something that you want people to understand about that sacrifice? It's voluntary.
It was a sacrifice that they made. I'm honored that they would do that, not just for me, but for the country.